In the vast darkness of space, the Galactic Empire ruled with an iron fist. Their fleet was powerful, made up of the best warships and elite soldiers. Each ship was a symbol of strength, ready to crush any enemy that dared to challenge them. The Empire had little fear, believing no one could stand against them. But everything changed when they detected a strange signal from the far reaches of their territory. Admiral Kalros sat in his command center, surrounded by holographic displays of his fleet. He looked at the screen showing the mysterious signal. "What is this?" he wondered, tapping his fingers on the console. The signal came from a small, unregistered ship near a remote planet called Earth. The ship was tiny compared to the Empire's might. Kalros chuckled. "This will be easy," he said, smiling at his officers. "Send a few ships to take care of it." "This is nothing." Meanwhile, aboard the human ship, Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge, staring at the stars. His ship, the Valiant, was small but full of surprises. The crew was a mix of brave and determined men and women, all ready to defend their home. They had trained for years, knowing they would face challenges far greater than themselves. "We are ready for anything," Reynolds declared, turning to his crew. "No matter what comes our way, we will fight." As the Empire's ships approached, Reynolds and his crew felt the tension rise. The small ship shook slightly as it powered up its engines. They were outnumbered, but the crew had a secret. They possessed advanced technology that the Empire did not expect. The Valiant could move quickly, and its weapons were precise and deadly. The Empire's ships, gleaming with power, drew closer. The crew of the Valiant monitored the scanners closely. "They think we're weak," said Lieutenant Sarah, one of the ship's best pilots. "Let's show them what we can do." Her words echoed with determination. Admiral Kalros gave the order to attack. "Engage at will," he shouted, believing victory was certain. The Empire's ships unleashed a barrage of fire, bright lights exploding in the dark. But the Valiant was ready. With a flick of his wrist, Reynolds shouted, "Now! Turn and dive!" The ship swiftly changed direction, avoiding the incoming blasts. The crew cheered as they felt the rush of adrenaline. Reynolds knew that the first moments of battle were crucial. He ordered his crew to prepare their weapons. "Target the nearest ship," he commanded. The Valiant locked onto one of the Empire's smaller vessels, its weapons glowing with energy. "Fire!" The ship shook as it unleashed a powerful blast, striking the enemy ship dead center. The Empire's vessel exploded, leaving a cloud of debris in its wake. Kalros's face turned pale as he watched. "What? How could they?" he began, but the words caught in his throat. The tiny human ship had just destroyed one of his best ships with a single shot. Panic spread among the Empire's crew. "Keep attacking!" Kalros yelled, frustration in his voice. He sent in more ships, believing that overwhelming force would win the day. But Reynolds and his crew were ready for the challenge. "Stay calm, everyone," Reynolds urged. "This is just the beginning." As the battle continued, the Valiant danced through the chaos. The human ship maneuvered like a dart, dodging enemy fire and striking back with deadly precision. The crew worked in perfect harmony, each member knowing their role. They fought not just for survival, but to prove that humanity was not to be underestimated. Admiral Kalros realized he had made a grave mistake. Underestimating a lone human ship had cost him dearly. The battle was far from over, but the tide had already begun to turn. As the stars twinkled above, the fate of the Galactic Empire and the bravery of the human spirit clashed in a way no one could have imagined. The battle in space was just beginning, and the tension was thick. Admiral Kalros stared at the view screen, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. He had sent multiple ships to deal with the small human vessel, thinking it would be an easy win. "Send in the next wave," he shouted to his officers. He couldn't believe that a single human ship had destroyed one of his elite vessels. The Empire's reputation was on the line, and he was determined to crush this unexpected threat. Meanwhile, aboard the Valiant, Captain Reynolds and his crew were still buzzing with excitement. They had successfully taken down an enemy ship, but they knew the real fight was just beginning. "Stay focused, everyone," Reynolds called out. "This is our moment to show what we can do." The crew nodded, their determination shining in their eyes. As the enemy ships closed in, Reynolds glanced at his radar. He could see several large vessels forming a perimeter around the Valiant. "They're coming in fast, Listy," Sarah said, her fingers dancing over the controls. "We need to be ready." The ship rocked slightly as enemy fire lit up the darkness of space. Reynolds felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a chance to show the Empire the strength of humanity. "Hold steady," Reynolds commanded. "Let's give them a taste of what we can do." He ordered the crew to target the nearest enemy ship, a large cruiser that was trying to flank them. "Fire on my mark!" The crew readied their weapons, hearts pounding in anticipation. 3, 2, 1, fire! Reynolds shouted. The Valiant unleashed a powerful blast, striking the cruiser with incredible force. The enemy ship erupted in flames and the crew cheered. But the celebration was short-lived. The remaining enemy ships retaliated with a fierce barrage of fire. Bright beams of energy shot toward the Valiant, lighting up the black void of space. "Brace for impact!" Reynolds yelled as the ship shook violently. The crew worked quickly to regain control, using the ship's advanced systems to dodge and weave through the enemy fire. "I've got their movements tracked," Lieutenant Sarah reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We can outmaneuver them." The Valiant swerved sharply, dodging incoming blasts. The crew moved with precision, each member understanding their role. Reynolds felt a wave of pride as he watched his team work together. "Now let's hit them where it hurts," he shouted. He ordered them to engage the ship that had just fired at them. With a single command, the Valiant struck back, targeting the enemy ship's weapons systems. The blast struck true, disabling the ship and sending it spiraling into the void. The crew cheered again, their spirits high. But Admiral Calros was furious. "What is happening? How are they doing this?" he yelled, frustration boiling over. Calros ordered his fleet to regroup and change tactics. "We must crush this human ship once and for all," he barked. He sent out the best pilots in the fleet to take down the Valiant. The remaining ships circled in a tighter formation, ready to attack from all sides. As the Empire closed in, Reynolds felt the weight of the situation. "They are not giving up," he said, his voice calm but serious. "We need to outsmart them. Let's use their size against them." He devised a new plan, one that would take advantage of the enemy's numbers. "When they attack, we'll split and let them collide with each other." The crew nodded, ready to follow their captain's lead. They had come too far to back down now. As the Empire's ships charged forward, the Valiant split into two, moving in opposite directions. The Empire's ships, caught off guard, collided with each other in a spectacular explosion. "Now, fire!" Reynolds shouted, and the crew unleashed their weapons once more. The tide of battle was shifting, and the Empire began to realize that they had underestimated the power of a single human ship. The Valiant was not just fighting, it was winning. The battle had escalated into a chaotic storm of lights and sounds. The Empire's remaining ships regrouped, their commanders furious and determined. Admiral Calros sat in his command chair, a scowl etched on his face. The loss of several ships to a single human vessel was a blow to his pride. "We will not be beaten by a mere speck of dust from a backwater planet," he roared at his officers. "Prepare the fleet for a full assault." Aboard the Valiant, Captain Reynolds could feel the tension in the air. The ship had just gained momentum, but the fight was far from over. "They're regrouping," Leta Sarah said, her eyes fixed on the radar. "It looks like they're planning a major attack." Reynolds nodded, his mind racing. "We need to be ready. This is where they will throw everything at us." He glanced at his crew, all of whom were focused and alert. "Keep calm and remember your training. We've come this far. We can win this battle." As the enemy fleet advanced, the Valiant powered up its weapons, ready for whatever was to come. The crew held their breath, waiting for the Admiral's command. The vast darkness of space was illuminated by the flashing lights of weapons fire, each beam a reminder of the danger they faced. "Here they come!" Sarah shouted as enemy ships charged toward them, weapons blazing. The Valiant rocked with the impact of enemy fire, but Reynolds kept his composure. "Steady! Evade!" he ordered, and the ship swerved sharply to the left. The crew worked in perfect harmony, quickly adjusting their tactics. Reynolds directed them to target the enemy ships with precision. "Fire at will. Aim for their engines!" he commanded. The Valiant unleashed a flurry of blasts, each one finding its mark. One by one, the Empire's ships began to falter. Admiral Calros watched in disbelief as another ship exploded in a brilliant flash. "How is this possible?" he shouted, his face twisted in anger. "Focus your fire on that human ship. It cannot keep this up forever." The remaining fleet opened fire, bright beams shooting toward the Valiant. The human ship shook violently and alarms blared. "We're taking damage!" Lieutenant Sarah yelled. "Shields at 70%. Redirect power from non-essential systems, Reynolds ordered. We need to hold on. He could feel the pressure mounting, but he refused to back down. The crew rallied, their resolve stronger than ever. Just then, a brilliant idea struck Reynolds. Let's use their own fire against them. When they shoot, we'll maneuver to make their blasts hit each other. The crew nodded, their eyes gleaming with determination. As the Empire's ships continued their assault, Reynolds put his plan into action. Now, dive and turn, he commanded. The Valiant ducked and twisted, causing the Empire's beams to collide with one another. Explosions erupted as enemy ships began to take damage from their own attacks. Look at that, Lieutenant Sarah exclaimed, a smile breaking across her face. They're hitting each other! With every passing moment, the tide of battle shifted. The Empire's arrogance was turning into panic. They had never faced a foe quite like this before, and their strategy was falling apart. Calros yelled at his officers, "We must regain control! Bring in the fighters!" Suddenly, small attack ships broke away from the main fleet, zipping through space to surround the Valiant. "They're trying to overwhelm us with numbers," Reynolds shouted. "We can't let them get too close." He ordered his crew to prepare the ship for close combat. As the enemy fighters swooped in, the Valiant responded with skillful maneuvers. Reynolds and his crew took down several small ships, their teamwork shining through the chaos. But more enemy ships kept coming, and the battle was reaching its peak. "Hold the line!" Reynolds yelled, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The crew pushed themselves to the limit, fighting not just for survival, but for the honor of humanity. The stars around them sparkled brightly, a reminder of what was at stake. With determination burning in their hearts, the crew of the Valiant fought fiercely. Each blast fired and each ship downed added to their growing legend. In the vastness of space, a single human ship stood against the might of the Galactic Empire, proving that bravery and skill could overcome even the greatest of odds. The battle raged on, but the crew of the Valiant remained focused. Captain Reynolds stood at the helm, sweat trickling down his forehead as he surveyed the chaos unfolding outside. Enemy ships filled the view screen, their weapons firing relentlessly. The pressure was immense, but within him burned a fierce determination. He knew that humanity's spirit was strong, and they had only just begun to fight back. "Enemy fighters are closing in!" Light Sarah shouted, her hands gripping the controls tightly. "We need to take them out before they can swarm us." Reynolds nodded, his mind racing. "Get ready to fire the forward cannons on my command! We have to make every shot count." He could see the fear in his crew's eyes, but he also saw their resolve. They were united in this fight, and together they would unleash their power. "Now!" Reynolds yelled, and the Valiant fired a barrage of energy blasts. The bright beams streaked through space, striking the enemy fighters with deadly accuracy. One by one, the small ships were destroyed, exploding in brilliant flashes of light. The crew cheered, their confidence growing with each victory. But the Empire was not finished. Admiral Calros was growing more furious by the moment. "They cannot keep this up! We have more ships than they can handle! Reinforce the attack!" he bellowed, refusing to admit defeat. As more enemy ships poured into the fray, Reynolds felt the tide of battle shift once again. "They're throwing everything at us! We have to keep moving!" He called out commands, directing his crew to dodge incoming fire and strike back at the enemy. "Shields are holding, but they're weakening," Lieutenant Sarah reported, her voice steady. "We can't take much more of this!" Reynolds knew they needed a new strategy. "Let's show them what humanity can really do. Use the secondary systems to charge the plasma cannon." The plasma cannon was a powerful weapon, but it required a moment to charge. He hoped they could buy enough time. As the Valiant dodged and weaved through the enemy fire, Reynolds glanced at the view screen. The chaos outside seemed endless. He could see the desperation in the enemy ships as they tried to surround his vessel. "Keep firing! We can't let them close in," he urged. The crew responded, firing blast after blast, but the Empire's forces kept coming. Reynolds felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They were outnumbered, but they would not back down. "Trust in our training! Trust in each other!" he shouted, his voice filled with passion. Finally, the plasma cannon was ready. "Prepare to fire!" Reynolds commanded, his heart racing with anticipation. "Aim for the flagship. If we take it down, we can turn the tide of this battle." The crew quickly locked onto the enemy flagship, a massive ship at the center of the Empire's fleet. With a deep breath, Reynolds called out, "Fire!" The Valiant unleashed a devastating blast of energy. The beam tore through space, striking the flagship with overwhelming force. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then, an enormous explosion lit up the darkness, sending debris flying in all directions. "Direct hit!" Laeta Sarah cheered, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's going down!" Reynolds felt a surge of hope. If they could take out the flagship, the rest of the fleet would lose their cohesion. But the enemy was not finished yet. Calros was furious as he watched his flagship crumble. "Regroup! Focus fire on that human ship! We will crush them!" The remaining enemy ships turned their weapons on the Valiant, blasting it from all sides. The ship shook violently and alarms blared. "Shields at 50%! Laeta Sarah shouted, fear creeping into her voice. But Reynolds refused to give in. "We've come too far! Fight back! Show them our power!" He called for another barrage of fire, aiming for the nearest enemy ship. With renewed strength, the crew fought back harder than ever. Each blast was filled with the spirit of humanity, a force the Empire had never encountered. As the battle continued, Reynolds knew they were not just fighting for their ship. They were fighting for the future of humanity. The determination and courage of his crew were unyielding, and they would not let fear dictate their fate. In the depths of space, the Valiant became a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of the human spirit. As the explosions lit up the sky, Reynolds knew they had the strength to turn the tide and unleash humanity's power on the Galactic Empire. The aftermath of the great battle was a sight to behold. The space around the Valiant was littered with debris from the destroyed ships of the Galactic Empire. Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge, breathing heavily, his heart still racing from the intensity of the fight. They had faced the might of the Empire and emerged victorious, but he knew this was not the end. "Status report!" Reynolds barked, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. The crew hurried to check their systems, and Laeta Sarah turned to him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We took heavy damage, but we're still operational. Shields are down to 20%, and we've lost some weapon systems, but we're okay for now," she reported. Reynolds nodded, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. "Good, but we can't stay here for long. The Empire will regroup, and we need to warn Earth about the threat they face." As they prepared to leave, a blip appeared on the radar. A single ship emerged from the wreckage, its hull battered but intact. "What is that?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowing in concern. Reynolds squinted at the screen. "It looks like a small shuttle. Could be a survivor. Should we intercept it?" Sarah suggested, her voice tense. "No," Reynolds decided. "Let's see what they want. They may have valuable information." He ordered the crew to stand by as the shuttle approached. Moments later, a transmission came through. The image on the screen showed an alien, a tall creature with shimmering scales and fierce eyes. "This is Commander Vex of the Galactic Empire," the alien said, its voice echoing through the bridge. "I come in peace. I wish to speak with you." Reynolds exchanged glances with his crew. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone firm. "I have seen your strength," Vex replied, its eyes narrowing. "You have defeated our fleet, but the Empire will not forget this. I am here to warn you." "Warn us?" Reynolds scoffed. "Why would we listen to you?" "You attacked us!" Vex straightened, showing no sign of fear. "I understand your anger, but you must listen. The Empire is not finished. We are regrouping, and we will return stronger than before. You have awakened a beast. Why should we believe you?" Laeta Sarah challenged. "Because I have nothing to gain by lying," Vex said. "If the Empire has a chance of defeating you, they will take it. You have proven to be a formidable enemy. But you are alone. The Empire will not rest until they crush you." Reynolds crossed his arms, contemplating the alien's words. "What are you proposing?" "I am suggesting an alliance," Vex said, its voice steady. "You may not trust me, but if you do not prepare, the next battle will not end in your favor. We can help you understand the Empire's strategies. You will need more than just one ship to face them again." The crew murmured among themselves. Some were wary, while others were intrigued by the idea of an alliance. Reynolds could see the conflict in their faces, but he knew they needed to consider the offer carefully. "Why do you want to help us?" Reynolds asked, eyeing Vex suspiciously. "Because I believe the Empire's tyranny must end," Vex replied. "I have seen the suffering they cause. Your victory may be our only chance to change things. Together, we can stand against them." Reynolds took a deep breath, weighing the options. "You may have a point. But if we accept your help, how can we trust you?" "I will stay with you," Vex said firmly. I will provide you with knowledge about the Empire's plans and weaknesses. You can decide if you want to trust me based on my actions." After a long pause, Reynolds finally nodded. "All right, we'll consider your offer. But remember, if you betray us, you will face the consequences." Vex inclined its head in agreement. "I understand. Let us prepare for what is to come. The Empire will not take long to recover." With that, the Valiant and the shuttle began to work together, forming an unexpected alliance. Reynolds felt a mix of hope and caution. They had defeated the Empire once, but the battle for their future was far from over. As they set a course back to Earth, Reynolds knew they had to share this warning. Humanity was stronger together, and now they had a chance to stand against the Empire's wrath. The fight was just beginning, and they would face whatever challenges lay ahead as one united force.